Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here with Mark Hixon, who is the Sidney and Erica Hsiao Endowed Chair in Marine Biology in the Department of Biology, which is in the College of Natural Sciences.
That's correct.
I'll be able to say that a number of times, and I'll get better at it as we go.
Sounds good.
Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you much, Jay.
Okay, so let's talk about what it takes to get where you are. What did you have to do in your life, you know, to get to this place here now?
Well, I've got to tell you, Jay, I have a dream job right now. I've got this fabulous professorship at Manoa that enables me to finish my career with research funds and teaching the sorts of things I want to do in public service. It's just fabulous. And I guess it started because I was raised near the ocean. I was a Navy kid. My dad was a naval officer, and we lived all over the world at different beaches. And being drawn to the ocean from an early age, the ocean became the center of my life. I became a surfer and played out in the water a lot, and then started watching Jacques Cousteau on TV and Sea Hunt.
You're giving away your age already.
You remember Sea Hunt? Sea Hunt. So scuba diving was like, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. So that got me interested in marine biology, and I never looked back.
Wow. So, but every scientist, you know, sort of shapes his own scientific destiny. Mm-hmm. And you specialize in things, your projects all have some common denominator. How did it work for you?
Yeah, when I was young, I was interested in everything in the ocean. This is typical of undergraduates who want to study marine biology. You know, they want to study whales, they want to study fish, they want to study corals, everything. And for me, I was guided by particular professors. I took a wonderful fish course, and that got me interested in fishes. And I took a very good ecology course, which is the study of how different animals and plants interact with each other in the ocean, and that got me hooked. So I became a fish ecologist. Well, I started my graduate work.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
Everybody says that. I mean,
yeah.
I see it quoted on the bottom of email already. It's one of those quotable quotes, you know, one good teacher can change your life.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm always fascinated because I really believe that the events, even little events that have that are likely to have profound effect, that grab you somehow, can change your life. But I'd like this moment for this discussion, can you tell me what it is to have a teacher? What kind of a teacher is this? What kind of a class is this that would change your life that way?
Great question. So the teachers that have influenced my life have been one that have shown a childlike fascination with biology, where they are excited all the time, they're curious all the time, and that's contagious. And that's what I was fascinated by. And then these are very experienced people who had a huge amount of knowledge they'd learned over their life. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So yes, an effective teacher definitely changes one's life.
You know, I remember my own high school experience. You know, everybody takes biology, and it was the most popular course in school. It's because it's the study of life.
It's the study of life.
and you know, the amazing thing is that more people didn't go into it. It was a sort of a gap there. You took it, you know, you put it behind you. Okay, we had this great time, great teacher in biology, and now we're going to go into something else. And I wonder if there's some kind of, you know, special threshold that you have where you say, wait a minute, that was so good, I'm never giving it up. I connected with that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, many people, you know, at a young age want to be marine biologists. It seems to be one of those sorts of interests that go by the wayside eventually. I think it stuck with me because I was so connected with the ocean from an early age. So there was that primal draw for me, and I thought, if I can make a living out of working with the ocean and in the ocean, I'm going to do so. And I was lucky I made it.
Okay. Well, I interrupted you. Now you were telling me what happened past those classes and how you got into serious academic work.
Well, I was working to who I am today. So in graduate school, I ended up studying kelp forests off California. And I do all my work underwater. It's all scuba diving or using small submarines. And at the end of my graduate work, I was cold. The water there is so cold all the time. And I thought, I'm going to go to the tropics for my postgraduate work. So when I finished my doctorate at UC Santa Barbara, I came to UH, Hawaii, for my postdoctoral work. So
what year was that?
That was in the late 70s and early 80s. So I was here for a few years then. That got me started and hooked on coral reefs, and I haven't looked back. My job ended up being on the mainland until recently when Hawaii decided to hire me back, and that's why I've returned.
Is there something happening at UH in this subject? You know, one of our regulars, in fact, one of our directors is Dave Carl.
Oh, yeah.
And he's into marine biology.
Absolutely, yes.
What do you call it?
Yeah,
microbial
he's at the other end of the size spectrum from me.
But, but you do know each other.
Oh, we do know each other, yes.
So, you know, is there something happening at UH in this department, in this area of science?
Well, there's been one big recent development in marine biology at UH, and that is a graduate program in marine biology. And this is a cooperative agreement among different colleges. So it's not just my College of Natural Sciences, but it's also SOAS, School of Earth and Ocean Science and Technology. And it's a great program. So we'll see how that gets going in its baby steps. And then secondly,
How do you feel about the subject being spread around that way?
Oh,
Should
it's
it be?
good.
Is that the natural academic pattern?
Oh, absolutely. My closest colleagues at UH are in SOAS. So the scientists don't tend to care too much what departments or colleges they're in, even though the deans are, worried about money and that kind of territoriality, not the professors. So
just get it done.
We all get along well, and we're all very good colleagues.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to say the second sort of newsy thing is that we've had a sort of temporary undergraduate degree in marine biology that's now finally going to become a permanent part of the landscape, although the students won't notice the difference. It's just getting solidified. So
what does that mean? It goes from undergraduate to what, PhD, straight shot to PhD?
No, it's not a straight shot. It's two separate programs. So you can come as an undergraduate student at UH Manoa and get a Bachelor's of Science degree in marine biology. And then you can also apply to graduate school and get a master's or a PhD in marine biology as well. And I'm sure some people may go all the way through and do both.
Where do we fit, in the academic landscape? We have some very talented people. They sat on that chair, actually.
Absolutely.
But, where do we fit against, I don't know, Santa Barbara, Woods Hole, what have you? Name some world-famous places.
Well, it always depends upon the discipline. So UH has always been very well known in oceanography and astronomy and astrophysics, those sorts of things. And within oceanography, we're quite highly rated in marine biology as well, both nationally and internationally. And of course, there's the business school and other very good programs at UH Manoa, but I'm still relatively new, so I can't catalog all of them. I don't want to give anyone short shrift.
But how do you make the measurement? Do you make the measurement by the, publications, by literature which refers back to our university? Yeah. How do you make that measurement?
There are different entities that do rankings of schools, and it has to do with publications. It has to do with how much those publications are cited, job placement in different disciplines. There's a whole variety of metrics that they use, and different organizations use different metrics.
I would think, and this could be totally wrong, but I would think that with all the talent and the ocean right here in our doorstep, and this whole body of research and knowledge and attention that we've paid to marine biology, that a graduate of the marine biology program, of any of the marine biology programs in Hawaii, could get a job doing that commercially in Hawaii. Is it true?
Well, it depends upon the area. Marine biology is a very, very broad area. So you mentioned Dave Carl, who studies microbes. I study fish. There's people who study marine mammals. There's people who study the non-living part of the oceans. And all those different areas have different job markets and different job opportunities. Here in the state, I would imagine there's teaching opportunities at the community colleges and high schools. There's sort of tech opportunities working for the state, you know, the Division of Aquatic Resources, things of that sort. Higher level jobs maybe in the federal government, Noaa, things of that sort. And then I'm sure there's some consulting firms and other sort of environmental groups. Also the environmental organizations. The Nature Conservancy has hired UH graduates, things of that sort.
Is it an expanding field?
Well, not as much as marine scientists would like it to be expanding.
Sure, they want lots of possibilities.
Well, you know, we've always thought there should be a NASA for the oceans, but marine science and other science in general doesn't get nearly the support that NASA gets. So, you know, the ocean is the last frontier on this planet. We've mapped the surface of Mars and the moon way better than we've mapped our own ocean seafloor. So the oceans need to catch up.
Yeah, but don't you think it will? I mean, why? Because there are factors in place, variables in place that will push it that way. I mean, for example, there'll be more action, not necessarily good action, about climate change, more action about aquaculture, and you know all the changes that are going on in the ocean, not necessarily good ones, where people well-trained will have to come and deal with that and understand it and fix it as necessary. You know?
Yeah, we face huge challenges with the ocean. The ocean has been absorbing about a third of the heat that's being produced in climate change. The oceans are acidifying. We have fisheries issues. We need to get more food from the ocean. Increasingly, we're finding our non-living resources, fossil fuels and what have you, from the ocean. Things are changing so rapidly. So one would hope that job opportunities and funding for learning about these things and exploring the ocean better will be forthcoming.
And one would also hope that those jobs and opportunities will be right here, and that we'll have an industry of ocean of some kind.
One would think we're right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
You know
here.
more here than anyone, well, most anyone.
Yeah, this is a great place for ocean research.
Well, okay, so now finish me with your career. So, so you've been designated as the appointed, I guess, as the Sidney and Erica Hsiao Endowed Chair in Marine Biology. What does that mean exactly? I know it's good to be a chair, and I want you to know that the chairs that you and I are sitting on, each one of them has been endowed. And if you look at the back of our chairs here in the studio, you'll see the name of the endowing party.
That's great. That's great. Well, an endowed chair is a special professorship that's created when someone makes a major donation to a university in a particular area. And I'm very honored to be the Hsiao Chair because it was actually funded by Erica Carawina, who is the preeminent, or was the preeminent stained glass artist in Hawaii. You go into most of the nice churches in Hawaii with these beautiful stained glass windows. You go into the federal building, you go into the state buildings, various places around Oahu, and there are these beautiful, thick stained glass images, typically with a Hawaiian motif, just gorgeous.
Is she living today?
She passed away early this century, and it was her bequeathment to the university in honor of her husband, who was a professor at UH Manoa, that created my position. So I just feel so honored that art is sponsoring my science.
That's great. What
Yeah,
a great
it's
combination
really great.
of events.
Yeah, it's really wonderful.
So we're going to take a short break, Mark.
Okay.
And when we come back, I'd like to, may I say, get serious?
Yeah, we'll get more serious.
We can get serious about exactly what you're doing with that acronym that I really have, I'm studying that acronym. Where is it?
BOFF?
Yeah, BOFF. Okay, this show is about BOFF. And that, I can't even pronounce it properly because how do you pronounce FFFF? That's a heavy F, BOFF, okay? We'll be right back after this break where we're going to reveal to you exactly what that is and why you need to know about it. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevelin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday. Aloha.
2, 1. Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidell, and the fellow next to me is Dr. Mark Hixon, and he's the Sidney and Erica Hsiao Endowed Chair in Marine Biology, Department of Biology at UH, which is part of the College of Natural Sciences. So we have unearthed, or when you take them out of the ocean, I suppose, we have unearthed a scientist here who can tell us about BOFF, and that's BOFFFF, 4 Fs, okay, which I'll tell you now. We will learn more about this. That's a big, old, fat, fertile female fish. And that's important because it sustains fisheries. We save the big old fish, and that is essential to replenishing stocks. And replenishing stocks is essential to the future of the world.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Right.
So tell us about BOFFs.
So BOFFs, just as a prelude to talking about BOFFs, we're increasingly learning that there's no free lunch in nature. We can't take from nature and expect everything to be free with no problem at all. Not at the level that we are doing things now with over 7 billion of us on the planet. So in fisheries, it's always been assumed that an adult fish is an adult fish. If you have a small adult female fish and a large adult female fish, all that matters is the total weight of fish that produces the eggs that produce the next generation. That's a basic assumption of our fisheries management. So what that means is typically we will catch the larger fish. Our nets are designed to catch the largest fish. Almost all our fishing gear focuses on larger fish. And it was always assumed that that wasn't a problem. What happens through time is you start losing the large fish from the population. So instead
Because people catch them.
Because people catch them. So a perfect example is cod in the North Atlantic Ocean. If you look at Indian middens from before the Europeans arrived, the average size of cod that were being captured was the size of an adult man, 2 meters.
Whoa.
2 meters.
Whoa.
And then that soon went down to about 1 meter when fishing started. And by the time the fishery collapsed, which was in the early 1990s, the average size fish they were getting was maybe 1 to 2 feet in length. So the big ones were gone. And it used to be thought, well, as long as there's, massive fish out there producing eggs, it's okay. But what we're finding is it's not really okay. But before I get into that, the other reason we lose big fish, of course, is recreational fishing. People love trophy fish. We want to catch a great big one and show our friends and
Macho.
and all of that. Yeah, catching big fish not only feeds our bellies, it also feeds our egos.
Right, get a picture of it, holding it up, all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with further research, what we're starting to find around the world, freshwater fishes as well as ocean fishes, warm water versus cold water, is a very general pattern. And that is populations where we've lost the big fish tend to be very unstable in their abundances. And that's not good.
What does unstable mean?
Unstable means that the abundance of fish fluctuates a lot through time. So
through a year, 2 years, 4 years?
It depends upon the species, but it's, short-term fluctuations. So if you think of trying to manage a fishery, it'd be good for things to be on an even keel so that you can calculate how much fish you can take out each year without causing the stock to collapse. If the stock is jumping up and down through time, then you can set a fishery quota 1 year that actually pushes the stock to commercial extinction. And this has happened time and time and time again. So biologists started looking at this phenomenon and saying, well, why when we lose the big fish, does the population start jumping all around and destabilizing, which can cause fisheries to collapse? And what we learned, a whole variety of scientists, I just helped compile the information. A whole bunch of scientists around the world found that there's 4 ways that BOFFs, big, old, fat, fertile female fish, help to stabilize the populations. Well,
There's going to be an exam after this.
There will be an exam.
And it'll be short answer, but it's probably worth your while, you know, writing down these 4 ways.
These 4 ways. But let me preface this with one important difference between human beings and fish. Human beings get to a certain age and they stop reproducing. We all know that. Fish don't do that. A fish will reproduce until it is eaten or dies of an illness or drops dead. So the bigger the fish, the more eggs. So that's reason number 1. The reproduction of female fish is limited by how big their bellies are, how big their body cavity is. And there's a huge difference. Let me give you one specific example. If you look at bluefin trevally, or omilu here in Hawaii, a jack.
Same thing.
Same thing, a jack. A 27-inch fish will produce as many eggs in 1 year as 84 fish that are 1 foot long. So one fish that's just over 2 feet long produces as many eggs as 84 fish that are 1 foot long.
This is really important. It's logarithmic.
Yes, it's an incredible exponential increase in what we call fecundity with size in fish. So you go out fishing, you can catch 50 1 foot long, nice dinner-sized plate fish and wouldn't have nearly the impact as catching just 1 fish that was 2 feet long. So egg production, number 1, is the first reason these fish are so valuable. They produce so many eggs. Okay, the second reason is that we're finding that the eggs produced by the old fat females tend to be better eggs in many species. They produce larger young and young that can withstand starvation better. And this is very important because when the eggs first hatch, those little dinky larvae are out there drifting in the ocean looking for food. And sometimes they have to go without food for a while. If they're thin, they may starve before they find food. If they're nice and fat to begin with, they can persist longer and find food.
Why does an old fat fertile fish, you know, give birth to a stronger embryo or whatever it is?
So it's the trade-off between growth and reproduction. Small fish are producing eggs, but they also have to put a lot of their food energy into growing larger to escape predators. So once a fish gets nice and big, it can put all its energy into producing eggs.
Interesting.
Is the big difference.
Interesting.
So that's 2 reasons. The third reason is that big old fat fertile female fish, having so many eggs, will typically spawn at different times of the year and in different parts of the ocean than smaller fish. Smaller fish just have a few eggs. They choose a time, they choose a place, they spawn those eggs, and that's it for them for the year. Where the great big females move around, dole out their eggs over the year, and that's incredibly important in a variable ocean environment.
Why is it, though? Is it because they can make greater distances because of their size?
Yeah, well, they typically live in different parts of the ocean. Small fish will live in a different habitat than large fish. And then if you're producing a lot of eggs, you don't have to just dump them all at once. You can kind of dole them out over the season. Now, the reason this is important is you think of an egg that's being cast into the ocean. At first, they just drift. And whatever water they're in is that's their life. If there's no food there, they're out of luck. If they drift out into the open ocean and never make it back to the island, they're out of luck. So it's literally, those eggs are like lottery tickets. And so the more lottery tickets an adult puts out and in different places at different times, the better the chance they're going to get a winning ticket. Because if you think about it, all those thousands of eggs that a single female is producing, really, to keep a stable population, just needs to replace herself and whatever males she spawned with. So
Okay.
that's reason number 3. And finally, number 4. There are years in the ocean when it's just not good for spawning. It may be incredibly warm year where there's not much food in the ocean, or the currents are drifting the wrong direction when the fish spawn. And if you allow there to be big old fish in the population, they can outlive those unfavorable periods, those bad times, and be ready to spawn with their great big bellies full of eggs when the good conditions come back.
I know this is a primitive question, but how do you spawn in the open ocean? What's the sex life of a boff? How do they get the egg and the sperm together, whatever it is, together?
That's a perfect question. I probably should have started with that. So typical ocean fish, a male and a female, will typically rise into the water column together, and then she squirts her eggs into the water column, and he squirts his milt into the water column at the same moment. Timing, and it's all done with courtship behavior leading up to that moment. There are fish that group spawn. There are fish that do only pair spawning, but it's basically, the idea is get those eggs and sperm and get them fertilized, but also get them away from mouths, because lots of things like to eat eggs. I mean, we like to eat chicken eggs. There's lots of
caviar is great,
and there's lots of little mouths out there in the ocean. So especially for coral reef fishes, for example, spawning right at the reef is typically dangerous. That's why the fish will get up off the bottom, often when the tide's going offshore, to get those eggs away from the reef so that babies can grow away from their predators.
Okay, that's the fourth reason.
Well, that's the reason for spawning. So just really quickly to go over those reasons again. Bigger fish produce far more eggs, reason number one. Reason number two, bigger fish can produce eggs of better quality. They produce babies that grow faster and withstand starvation better. Reason number three, the big fish spawn in different places and different times of the year than smaller fish. So they do better bet hedging. And finally, number four, the big old fish can outlive unfavorable periods. Small fish don't get a chance till they get caught. Big fish can outlive things and be ready to go when the conditions become favorable again.
Is this so with all the species, or are there exceptions?
So there are exceptions to all these rules, but almost every one of these rules, at least one of them applies to most fish. Some of the notable exceptions are fish like sharks. They have internal fertilization. They develop a certain number of offspring each year, typically in the same place. And so we're talking here really about bony fish that shoot their gametes into the water column.
So I'll take all of those and give you a conclusion.
Okay.
We want to protect them. We don't want to catch them. The old notion about catching the big fish and leaving the little ones to grow up and become big fish, that's not really the best way.
Yeah, so this is requiring a huge change in worldview. In fact, this change in worldview is having to be embraced by fisheries biologists as well as fishermen. The thought that, wait a minute, you mean all female fish aren't the same? And that big ones are actually different than smaller adult females is a huge issue. But
it runs against the economics too.
Well, yeah.
If I catch a big one, then there's more money in it for me.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather catch a big one, even
Absolutely.
though I shouldn't be.
Yeah. So the trade-off, this is why there's no free lunch in nature. The trade-off is continue what we're doing and increasingly seeing fish stocks be variable and sometimes collapsing, or save some of the BOFFs. Not all of them, but some of them. Make sure that there are some BOFFs in the population so that they can do their BOFF thing and help stabilize the population.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to ask you how.
Got it.
To do this. We need to know how. And I suppose there's going to be a lot of resistance somehow to whatever we suggest.
Absolutely.
That's Mark Hixon. He's the Sidney and Erica Hsiao Endowed Chair of Marine Biology at the Department of Biology in the College of Natural Sciences at Manoa, a real scientist doing real research and sharing it with us, and it's really interesting. And this, of course, is research at Manoa. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute. One of the things I love being, however, is the host of the weekly program on ThinkTech Hawaii called Ehana Kako, which means let's work together. I get to interview movers and shakers in our town and across the world so that you and I together can learn and to grow. please join me every Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. or watch us on the recording, www.thinktechhawaii.com. Aloha and e hana kako. Let's work together.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We weren't kidding. We said we'd come back, and we came back. Okay, that's Mark Hixon over there. He's the Sidney and Erica Hsiao Endowed Chair in Marine Biology, Department of Biology, College of Natural Sciences at Manoa. We've been talking about BOFFFs, and let me refresh you on that in case you just joined us or you forgot. More likely you forgot. A BOFF is a BOFFFF, big, old, fat, fertile female fish, and it's revolutionary what we are learning about them. It changes our view of fishing, including commercial fishing. And we have to protect them, or at least some of them. So how do we do that, Mark?
Okay, so there's really there's three ways to protect the BOFFFs, one of which is not economically viable. One is you just stop fishing the population, and the fish will eventually grow and you'll have more BOFFFs, but that means there's no fishing, so that's not going to work. There's two other ways of doing it. One is for fish that live in one part of the ocean and don't migrate too much. So reef fishes, for example, you have some marine reserves. You have some areas set aside where the BOFFFs can live out their entire lives and pump a whole bunch of eggs into the environment and seed areas outside the reserve. In fact, we've documented that this works here in Hawaii with real Hawaiian fish. And this was a study done on the Kohala Kona coast of Hawaii Island with yellow tang, which is the most important aquarium species in Hawaii. They get up to be about this big or so.
Okay.
But at that big,
good coloring, popular.
Yeah, bright color yellow. At that size, they can be over 40 years old.
Really?
Yeah, it's an amazing little animal.
So a BOFF is relative. That's a BOFF.
A BOFF is relative. This is a BOFF for a yellow tang. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. So what we found what's been found on the Kohala Kona coast is that the fisheries replenishment areas that were set up by a bottom-up process for the aquarium fishery is actually replenishing the fishery. Very well documented. And using genetics, we've found that fish that spawn inside those marine reserves, actually their babies can be found outside the reserves. We can use genetics to match parents and offspring. So we know that this mechanism actually works. Okay, that's
so in order to do that, you have to look outside the reserve. You have to physically go out there, catch some,
yeah.
take DNA from them.
So we just went all the way around the island and captured fish and then just took a little fin clip from them and released them.
You don't have to kill them.
You don't even have to kill the animals. It's great. And with this new technology, you can process many fish very quickly. And it's almost like DNA fingerprinting that we use in law, you know, to figure out somebody's parent. Yeah. You can actually match the babies with their parents.
And you can do it right there on the boat.
You have to do that in the lab.
So you take a lot of clippings, you bring the clippings back in.
Exactly.
And what you got to do is keep a record of where you took the clippings from.
Exactly. That's all you have to do. It's a wonderful technology.
Cool.
So one way to say the BOFFFs marine reserve. Now, marine reserves don't work for all species. We have things like ahi that wander the oceans of the world, things of that sort. So the other mechanism is what's been called a slot limit. A slot limit means that you don't want to catch the very small fish because they haven't had a chance to reproduce yet. And you don't want to catch all the very largest fish because those are your BOFFFs. Instead, you target your effort and your fishing gear toward that middle size, the younger adults that have had an opportunity to spawn but haven't become BOFFFs yet. And if you regulate that fishery just right, the big ones, there'll be enough big ones that get away that you can have the BOFF effect.
Tell me mechanically how you do that. I mean, can you describe the gear and how you strain out or allow the BOFFFs to escape while you catch the medium stuff? It sounds hard to do that. How do you do that?
It's going to be very hard to do, and that's one of the reasons that this idea isn't that popular. So, you know, if let's say you have a net fishery where you catch the fish with net, well, you know, you can get the little ones getting out of that net, but anything bigger than that, including the BOFFFs, will be captured. In the net. Yeah, so that doesn't typically work. If we're using hook and line, sometimes when we bring fish up to the surface, we may want to let the big ones go, but they've been damaged. You know, the decompression or the gears injured them somehow. So this is not an easy thing to do by any means. And for all species, you know, we may not be able to do it. There are fisheries, for example, these ideas can apply to things like lobster and crab as well, where you bring up a bunch of them and you just sort through them. So you can let go, you know, the females or the largest females, anything where you can, any fishery where you can size the animals and release them unharmed, you can do a slot limit.
But you're relying on the good faith of the fisherman. Because he, from an economic point of view, he wants the big one. Yeah. He's there by himself, alone. Nobody is checking what's in his hold. There are no BOFF police, that's
yeah,
my term.
That's a good one.
who are going to protect the BOFFs. And so if he decides, you know, looking around, seeing nobody's watching him, that he's going to keep this BOFF for market, he gets to do that.
Yeah.
How do you change his view of it? He's not a scientist, he's a fisherman.
I get that, I get that. So this is where we have this issue that's known as the tragedy of the commons.
Okay.
And the tragedy of the commons, in a nutshell, is if I don't take this fish, somebody else is going to, so I'm going to take it. And what needs to happen is not just one person changing their mind, but enough people changing their mind at the same time. So they agree that we're going to allow the BOFFs to persist in our fishery. This is one reason why I am in favor of community-based management, which is starting to grow up again here in Hawaii. That's the way it used to be. The ahupua'a concept was there was a local reef that was managed by those people in that part of the island. And for reef fisheries, it's the best system of all for being able to control what the population is doing. And, you know, we may need the old kapu system where
the policeman.
The BOFF police. But yeah, it's an uphill battle, and I'm not claiming that, you know, let's do this because everybody's going to get on board immediately. It's going to take a major change in people's worldview. It's thinking about the future as well as thinking about the present. I think fishermen who have children and grandchildren will probably be more apt to get on board with this idea.
Trained from the very early days. I don't know why, but I keep thinking about real estate. Now let me explain what I mean. You know, they always joke, they say real estate is not about land. Real estate is about relationships. It's sociology. Well, marine biology is not about fish. It's about relationships.
I agree.
It's about sociology.
Absolutely.
If you want to save the fish, this is what you got to do.
You know, you are absolutely right, Jay. I actually, through time, I've been taking courses in psychology.
There it is. Good move.
because effective management is dealing with people. It's not dealing with the biology of the system. It's managing people, and it takes a lot of convincing.
Yeah. Well, let me go off into, you know, the threat to the fisheries.
Sure. Sure.
You know, it's bad when you have 7 billion people all wanting protein, but it gets worse when, you know, the supporting system is under duress and getting worse. We got a big problem here, and I personally like fish, and I feel certain that you do too.
I love fish. I absolutely love fish.
So, you know, query, you know, what do we do about this on a larger level? We have, how serious is it? And what do we do about it? You know, we got climate change. We got changes in the chemistry of the oceans, which have, you know, adverse effects at levels we don't even fully yet understand. We have fisheries collapsing regularly, and we have commercial fishermen who don't give a rip about any of that, who take what they can take because it's their livelihood. So what do we do about that in terms of relationships?
We also have fishermen who are very concerned about the future, and they want the next generation of fishermen to be able to make the catches they've made as well. So there's all kinds of people out there. But yes, the ocean is entering a new realm that we have never experienced as human beings. The ocean is warming. and it will be warming faster and faster and faster. What we've seen so far is nothing, and that's one thing I want people to learn more than anything else. The rate of change is accelerating. So we ain't seen nothing yet. But with this ocean warming that takes place here in Hawaii, there's two major issues that we'll be facing. One is our coral reefs are going to take a hit. If the water becomes too warm and we have severe coral bleaching, we could actually lose our reefs.
Bleaching is when the coral dies.
It's essentially a prelude to the coral dying. The second thing is with a warming ocean, you get less what's called productivity. That is, the plant life and the nutrients don't get together as well as they used to, and that's the basis of the whole web of life. And there's predictions that the productivity is going to be declining. So it behooves us, as humans who can predict the future with some certainty, in this case anyway, to think about these changes and come up with strategies to make sure that we have some sustainability in the future, to foster what's called resilience in the ecosystem, the ability of the ecosystem to bounce back when we have some of these catastrophes occur.
When you talk about the collapse, and you have today a couple times, of a given species, you mean it's extinct or it's just really low ebb?
When I talk about the collapse of a fishery, I'm not talking about biological extinction. I'm talking about a stock being fished down so low that it's not worth commercially fishing anymore. The catch isn't worthwhile.
Okay.
Species is still out there, but it's at a very low population size. So what we really want to do is two things. We want to bring the fish populations up to a good fishable level, but then there's also this idea of stability. We want the populations to waver, not quite so much. So the general approach for the oceans is what's called ecosystem-based management. We want to ensure that there's BOFFFFs around. We've already talked about that. We want to foster the recovery of reefs when they get bleached. And one way to do that is to put small artificial structures out on the reef that have shelter for fish. Because if a reef dies and collapses, but there's new places for fish to live, they can settle and grow, and the herbivores, the ones that eat seaweeds, can keep the reef surfaces clean so that the corals can settle and grow again after a dying event. These are the kinds of research projects we need in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, could it be that you could have what amounts to artificial reefs? And in other words, we could let the reefs go bleach and still be okay?
Well, we're not talking about replacing the reefs with artificial reefs. We're talking about small modules, I guess if you will, small artificial reefs that are inserted in dead reefs that become focal points for fish activity and sea urchin activity. And from there, they keep not only those modules, if you will, clean, but they also start cleaning the area around them so that corals can settle and grow, and you get the natural reef coming back, not just replace
the whole system.
The whole system with an artificial reef.
Yeah.
We can't replace nature on that scale.
No. And if we do, we're going to get surprised somehow.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what else do we need? Of course, we have to deal on the sociological level. Maybe you have to deal on the legal level. We have to deal on the international level, because you can find one country comes in and takes everybody's lunch.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But it seems to me that at the end of the day, you still have the climate change going on. And as you said, it's accelerating. And as it accelerates, this gets more pronounced, and there'll be fewer fish that survive, and we'll have a diminution, even if we behave ourselves really well.
Yeah, I believe the best thing we can do is slow the rate of decline, rather than have it happen very precipitously. And that slowing the rate of decline buys us time. And if we're lucky, we may make some breakthroughs in the meantime that can help us persist through this freight train that's heading down the tracks at us.
Yeah, I wish we could say the freight train will turn around and come back, but that's not clear.
The key thing is we can't ignore the freight train just because it hasn't hit yet.
Yeah. One last question, and then we'll have to go, and that is open ocean aquaculture the solution to all of this?
I believe open ocean aquaculture is part of the solution. It's not the solution. Now, the problem we've had with aquaculture up till now is that it's typically in nearshore waters where you have pollution problems, the fish pooping, the excess feed getting out, habitat modification, and a lot of other problems. There are now some experimental projects to take aquaculture spheres, if you were, far offshore where these little concentrations of pollutants can disperse to safe levels readily. It's in an experimental phase, and it'll be interesting to see if it works. The big problem with aquaculture, though, is it takes animals to feed animals. And if we're looking for food for people, you're better off just eating the forage fish that you would otherwise feed these other fish than feed the fish and eat the fish that you fed the fish to. So if we can develop plant feeds for these aquaculture facilities, then we're on to something. Then we can produce animal protein relatively inexpensively without local pollution effects, if we're lucky.
Boy, it sounds exciting, actually. You know, I mean, there's an element of saving the world here.
Well, you know, my whole career shifted when I had children, and it's gone into high gear now that I've become a grandfather.
Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
Mark Hixon, grandfather. And also the Sidney and Erica Hsiao, Endowed Chair in Marine Biology at the Department of Biology in the College of Natural Sciences at UH Manoa. Thank you so much for sharing, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Jay. My pleasure.
Aloha.
Aloha.